What's going on, guys? Welcome on back to Second and Short with your host, Tyler Lauder, and I'm joined with our Dynasty Fantasy expert, Jason.
Hey, what's up, man? Glad to be back. This is turning out to be a nice little forte that we've got going on. Getting some good content out there, some nice hot takes on the TikTok. Loving it, man.
Yeah, being helpful to everybody out there and everything. And this is, of course, Second and Short's production of the Cheap Seats. And the idea behind the Cheap Seats Fantasy Podcast is that while it's very hard to see things up in those cheap seats, we're here to provide you with some dynasty, or fantasy football clarity to help you guys just get through this fantasy season. The biggest issue, real quick, before we go on to this, is kind of be like our dynasty clarity subject, even though we're not going to have one. I've been noticing so much all over on like TikTok and like Instagram and everywhere I can watch stuff, that so many content creators out there are taking like the softest approaches, the softest takes, the most obvious takes. Like I saw a guy do like a video and it was like running backs I like this season and hate. And like, it was like, he loved Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin. Like, of course you love those guys. Everybody loves those guys. Like that doesn't help anybody. In my opinion, that stuff doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, I mean, taking the saying you like the top 5 running backs coming off the board. I mean, that's not what we do here. We dive deep. We get you some clarity. We get you some diamonds in the rough and everything. So don't expect that weak stuff here. And
speaking of which, today's podcast is about high risk versus high reward. What we're going to do is we're going to use the sleeper apps, just standard PPR leagues. Their ADP that we got going on. Based on the ADP, we're going to talk about in each round, the top 12 in each group, and keep going, the best high risk, high reward guy we have in that group. So necessarily this can apply to anybody. It doesn't matter where you're drafting. If this guy falls to you in your spot, you can have a huge just gift, a treat. Christmas came early for you, or you're going to be roster baiting after your draft, but in reality, there's too much risk there and it's not happy. And we're going to start off with round 1. Let's just jump right on it. So with an average, an ADP of 6, we have running back from the Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor. Now, why is he a high risk player in the first round?
Well, I mean, one, you always expect that sophomore slump. But most importantly, the Indianapolis Colts, which we talked about on the last episode, they have some uncertainty at quarterback. Wentz going down, it's minced about how long is he actually going to be out and everything. You're getting conflicting reports and everything. But Taylor possibly hitting that sophomore slump, coming into as a rookie, teams didn't know how to really prepare for him. Now with that offense being a little hobbled, they lost one of their top offensive linemen. Their QB1 goes down. Taylor's going to be having a real tough road ahead of him, and I think 6 is a little high, and you need to curb those expectations for him this year.
I mean, especially when you consider the fact that you can get somebody like Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, who are going 2 ahead of him, but also Nick Chubb or every receiver, and Travis Kelce is going in that range, which all those guys can be looked at as safer prospects. And maybe not Barkley or Chubb, but really you can get Tyreek Hill at 6. That's safe. That's a top 3 wide receiver for the entire year. Now, the reason why he's high reward though is because we all could be wrong. Like, I agree with you, the fact that Carson Wentz, Quentin Nelson being out, the fact that there's this RBBC right now building in Indy is going to hinder him. However, he's still the most talented running back in Indianapolis. So if he gets 250 to 300 carries, he gets about 50 targets, I'll say is comfortable for me, and nobody steals goal line touches from him. He could easily finish as an RB1 this year, and your pick in the first round would be justified. Now let's move to the second round. Second round, we got a guy that I feel like is high risk, high reward. Every single year, every year, no matter what. Who we talking about now with an ADP of 18?
That would be Mr. Joe Mixon, who is a love-hate player that I have. I mean, the years I draft him, he does great, and then the injury bug bites him. and it tanks my season because I'm relying on him to be that high contributor on my team. The years I don't draft him, he slides a little bit. Somebody snags him a little bit later after me, a pick or two after me, and he has a high reward. I mean, he produces. So I really think that it might be personal with me.
Yeah.
That, he might have some personal vendetta against me. I don't know. I mean, we might need to hash this out on Twitter or something. But that being said, Mixon is a player that can be a cornerstone of your team. Or he could be that player that you bank on that lets you down and cripples your team. So if I feel that, Mixon's in that gray area that if you're going to take him this high, make sure you got a running back on the back end that's going to be a contributor to fill in case he does get hurt.
I feel like he's the type of running back that if you got Kamara, McCaffrey, Zeke, Barkley, somebody like you can be more reliable in the first, then you can take a risk here. And that's when it's okay. But here's the thing. Everything you said is correct. And your vendetta against him is the same vendetta that everybody else in fantasy has against him, because you're not the only person that has that same story of he's done me wrong. And he always does me wrong when I draft him, but never when anybody else drafts him. It seems like we all have the same scenario, but here's the reality of it. If he's healthy, here's his running back competition. I'm just going to look at his depth chart right now. We have Samaje Perine. We have Travion Williams, rookie Chris Evans. There's really nothing there. Now, the offensive line isn't great. They have a lot of receivers. However, with that receiving core of Chase, Boyd, and Higgins being so deep, nobody's going to be looking at the Bengals and being like, let's stack 8 in the box and leave all of our safeties in our corners on an island against these playmaking wide receivers. So he's going to have less pressure inside that box. He's going to have more opportunities to get it done. Nobody's going to take the rock from him. I mean, Perine might take some goal line carries, but really Mixon should be 3rd or 4th in targets on this team and should have about 230 carries this year as well. If he's healthy, he's a running back 1. Simple as that. And you're going to get him in the 2nd round. If you decided to go Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and then you come back around and get Mixon and he plays 14 games, you could easily be winning your league this year. Now let's go. Go ahead.
Well, real quick, you got to throw in Cincinnati doesn't have a tight end either. So those screen passes to Mixon out of the backfield are going to be a major contributor that makes him one of the third receiver on that team, because they don't have a go-to tight end to match up against those linebackers. So some swing passes, some screens and stuff are going to be a major factor for him to contribute to your team.
And some safer options getting drafted around the same area as Joe Mixon are receivers A.J. Brown and Calvin Ridley, as well as another running back in J.K. Dobbins, or maybe you sneak in and you get a tight end like Darren Waller or George Kittle. Those are some safer options for you as well. Now, moving on to the 3rd round, with an ADP of 32, we have running back Miles Sanders from the Philadelphia Eagles. Miles Sanders last year in bursts looked fantastic. He was able to boom a lot. However, I think he busts a lot. I'm not even going to pull up the statistics. I'm just going to pull from the top of my head. I have him in a couple of leagues. I feel like there are more games that he has 12 or less rushes than he does 12 or more rushes. And in those games that he has 9 rushes, he breaks one off for 80. So you're like, oh man, he had a great week. Not really. I mean, those yards still count. That touchdown still counts. And but realistically, he's one of these guys that honestly could boom for you any week, but due to the low numbers in volume, he could bust just as easy. It's a coin flip for me.
Yeah, with Sanders, this is a really good example, like you just put out. He could have 15 carries. 14 of those carries could go 5 yards or less. One carry he could break off for 80. That's going to make his stat line skewed. And I think, the addition of Gainwell in there kind of hurts him. I don't think that gives you a lot of security having Sanders. Now, do I like Sanders as a player? I've got a couple of shares in him in a couple of leagues. I like him, but he's my RB3. He's my flex. He's somebody I can roll out in that situation. I'm not relying on him as a major contributor team. because of that skewed stat line. Because if you look at, if you're just looking pure stat line, you're going to think he's having these amazing production.
Exactly.
But then when you look at the plays he got the production, you're going to see the real Miles Sanders, I feel.
Yeah, and the biggest issue too is, like you talked about Kenneth Gainwell, but they also brought back Jordan Howard. They also still have Boston Scott there. They have two reliable tight ends, which means in the red zone, those are guys that are going to be taking care. I mean, you can't tell me that you could have Miles Sanders from the 3-yard line, or you could do a little out route to Zach Ertz. What are you going to go with? And in my eyes, that the tight end's more reliable. And we don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback position. We don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to run the ball more. Lots of things can happen. Okay, I got to plug in my computer. And the fact that you could turn around and you could get a guy that has wide receiver one upside in Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin. Maybe you even snag your quarterback early, which I'm not a big fan of, but you can get Josh Allen, who is my prediction is going to be the MVP of 2021. If he is, that means he's probably going to be the quarterback one in fantasy as well. They're just guys that are more safe than Miles Sanders. Granted, that bite of candy is great, but every now and then it gives you a toothache. You just got to be it's reality. So let's go to move on to the fourth round with an ADP of 42. Let's talk about your guy.
Yeah, let's call him my guy. This is where rookie fever kicks in, and I have a very nice hot take that will be going up really soon, and we're going to be talking about Kyle Pitts. I think that this is one of the riskier picks at the tight end. I think that people see his situation, see his physical attributes, but you need to taper that off because he still is a rookie. And acclimating to the NFL from, the SEC, I mean, everybody talks about how great the SEC is. Still, the worst NFL player can still be dominant in college. So you got to taper those and things. And like we said previously on the show, losing Julio definitely hits it. Now, the volume will be there. Don't get me wrong. The volume will be there. Matt Ryan's arm is depleted. Those Julio targets got to go somewhere. It's going to go to Gage. It's going to go to Pitts. I just think that he does not have the separation and the ability to separate from some of these upper tier linebackers that he's going to face and be a production. I think you're going to, it's going to be similar to Sanders. I think you're going to have one big play, but his stat line is going to be skewed because of one big play. I think he's going to be a dink and dunk. Now he's going to be a full PPR monster. I believe that. But outside of that, I don't think he's going to produce.
I think the biggest issue is that looking at him in college, he double-digit touchdown type of guy, and he's able to do that, and that's great. However, justifying at an ADP of 42, a guy like Kyle Pitts, who needs to produce touchdowns at a tight end position where the tight end 4, the tight end 5, the tight end 6 are going to be separated by 20 points. Really nothing. A whole round later, you can get Mark Andrews. A whole 2 rounds later, or another round after that, you can get TJ Hawkinson. And around after that, you can get Dallas Goedert. Any of these guys could be the tight end 4 at the end of the year. They really could. So I can't justify taking that when the risk reward is too sweet for me. However, if he is one of these guys that is touchdown dominant, gets double-digit touchdowns, he pulls up 100 targets and snags in 70+ balls, we're all going to look foolish and it's going to be like, oh man, what a great player here. However, the chance of that happening in his rookie season is very slight. Rookie fever is real. Stay away. You can get somebody like Travis Etienne if you want a rookie instead, who has the same upside as a pass catcher, but he also is going to run the ball. I also like guys like Cooper Kupp and DJ Moore who are going after him, who I think are more reliable, are going to be more reliable in the passing game for their teams. Now, 5th round with an ADP of 52. ADP of 52. Let's talk about wide receiver. We haven't talked about one yet, really. I mean, kind of Kyle Pitts, but not really. Let's talk about Adam Thielen. He had 13 touchdowns last year. He's getting drafted as the wide receiver 21. But normally when you get double-digit touchdowns, regression happens.
And this is a guy that you brought up, and I'm a Thielen guy. I like Thielen. Do I like him to anchor a wide receiver core? No. He's very touchdown dependent. He is one of those that he's going to catch those little out routes. He's going to be one of those people that moves the chains, but his production and his fantasy points are going to be very, very touchdown heavy. Double digits last year. He's got another year of age on that body. He's not young. Thielen is on in the twilight of his career, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. And you have to take that into effect. Every year in the NFL, your veterans get half a step slower and rookies get a half a step faster, and that gap closes. That's what you got to taper. And plus, they have Kirk fucking Cousins. I mean, that's enough said right there. I mean, if you got to rely on Kirk Cousins to bail you out every week throwing to a receiver, you need to taper expectations.
And I think with the news of Justin Jefferson getting hurt, and we don't know the full status as the time of recording this, we know by the time the episode drops on Thursday, the news might be out, he might be fine. But let's say he's looking to miss some time. Adam Thielen's going to get pushed up even higher than the wide receiver 21. For me, that's an issue. The reason why it's an issue is because we have guys like Robert Woods, who normally finishes on average over the past 5 years as the wide receiver 13, 14. Getting him in the 5th round and almost a borderline wide receiver 1 is gold. Also, CeeDee Lamb, who's supposed to bust out. Jamar Chase. I'm not a big fan of taking Jamar Chase this year, but a lot of people like his upside. We also have Tyler Lockett, who is Russell Wilson's favorite target.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Lockett fan. I mean, especially with the DK Metcalf drop issues, I think Lockett gives you a good upside there, and you can get him just as in that same range as Thielen, and you're going to probably get better if not better production.
Exactly. I think there are safer options around him. However, if Kirk Cousins still sticks to, and Adam Thielen's got another year or two in him of being touchdown reliable, and he can have another 9+ touchdowns, he'll justify his placement here. Now, let's talk about a guy with an ADP of 72, another one of your guys, and we're in round 6 now. Let's go back to the running back position. Who are we talking about? The high risk, high reward.
We're going back to the Atlanta Falcons and talking Mike Davis, who, training camp, OTAs, the hype is real. Everybody's saying, look what he did in the absence of McCaffrey. That's why Atlanta signed him. I don't think so. I don't think that he's the guy in Atlanta. I think Atlanta's going to make a move to try to come out and get somebody that can complement him. I think you're going to see a running back by committee before the end of the year that's going to take his stock way down. And I think that you can get Mike Davis as a plug and play bye week, and that's perfectly fine. If you're getting Mike Davis and thinking that he's going to produce as your RB2 week in, week out, I've got another thing to tell you, because that's not going to happen. He's not going to be a focal point at offense. We talked about Kyle Pitts earlier. You lost Julio. So, I mean, the only proven player you have on that team is Ridley. And I think that's a problem for Atlanta. Will you get garbage points? Yes. But I don't think it's going to be the garbage points you want, because when you're behind, are you going to be running the ball or throwing the ball? You're going to be throwing the ball. You're not going to be relying on your running back to produce. So that's what the issue I have with Mike Davis. I don't think he's durable enough, and I don't think he has the upside to be taken at his current ADP.
Yeah, and the Atlanta Falcons also made a point too. I mean, they're the running back group is all kind of brand new, and they got rookies in there like Javian Hawkins and Caleb Huntley, but they also have returning what is his name, Quadre Olson. But here's the free agent signing that nobody's really talking about, is that they did bring in Cordell Patterson. And Cordell Patterson, as of late, has been used in those goal line situations as kind of like a power back. That's that big body guy that can kind of push through and get you those goal line touchdowns that you need. If that happens, he's going to take those away from Mike Davis. That's an issue. If we think that Pitts is going to be this safe check down guy for Matt Ryan instead of Mike Davis, that's an issue. If they're down in games, Calvin Ridley's going to be getting the ball more targets, then they're going to be running the ball. That's an issue. However, we could be wrong here. We could be very wrong, because even in a limited usage, Carolina was down in a lot of games last year, but Mike Davis was still able to be a top tier running back picked up off your waiver wire. And in the 6th round, if you can get a guy that has the potential to be a borderline borderline running back 1/2, it makes sense. However, there's so many external factors. Also, he's never done this before. Last year was the only time, and it was really only because there was a great system in Carolina that allowed the running back to dominate. Simple as that. And so the risk reward is super high there. Now, this is a very risky round. Round 6 is like my least favorite round in all of this whole year.
Yes.
For redraft, because there's so many guys that are risk reward. I can't tell you that there's better options for you to take necessarily. I think that you can go with, Melvin Gordon, potentially safer, but riskier. Javonte Williams, also in Denver, could the same thing, risk reward. The safest person probably in the 6th round right now is tight end TJ Hawkinson, realistically. But everything else outside of that, there are receivers that are either rookies, they got drops, they're coming back from ACL injuries, they have a brand new rookie quarterback. They're now the 3rd option. And all those guys are Devonta Smith, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Ayuk, Odell Beckham Jr., Juju, T. Higgins. There's a little tiny red flag next to all of them. But let's move on to the 7th round. We got 2 more rounds to talk about here. And I kind of just hyped up a bunch of receivers. And going at pick 76 is Courtland Sutton. Now, last episode, you and I both kind of hyped him up because it's kind of crazy that Devonta Smith is getting drafted ahead of him. And that's because of the high reward that we have here, that we think Courtland Sutton can come back from this ACL tear and be a 1,000-yard receiver, get 70+ catches and grab 5-6 touchdowns and be the guy. Here's the issue. We don't know who the quarterback is. We don't know if it's Teddy Bridgewater and now Sutton doesn't have chemistry with him, or we don't know if it's Locke and he has chemistry with Locke, but then Locke gets benched 3-4 games in. We don't know. Their quarterback situation is so unsettling. Him coming back from an ACL injury is a worrisome that's where the high risk comes into play.
Oh, I think Sutton is a great reward player right here. I like you said, me and you are in love with him and his ADP currently. Getting him this late in your draft, and hypothetically, he's going to be either your wide receiver 2 or 3 or a flex. You're going to have that good reward. The risk, like you said, quarterback situation. Teddy Bridgewater, I like a lot better than Drew Lock, but the chemistry's not there. It could be. They've got a month to work together. They could develop that chemistry. They can work something out. They may click, and we don't know it yet. Denver's holding everything really close to the chest on who their quarterback is going to be, what they're seeing. You don't see, because you're not seeing any hype coming out of Denver. That's what worries me. The injury for a skilled player, such as a wide receiver, we're going to see this with Sutton. We're going to see it with OBJ. An ACL tear is worrisome.
It's not a death sentence anymore, though. It's not the 80s or 90s, early 2000s. It's not a death sentence, but still, it changes you.
Yeah, it changes the style of play. You could have a complete burner before an ACL, and then go to a possession and a more savvy receiver after an ACL. So because the physical aspect, he can be strong physically. You got to incorporate that mental aspect too. Are they scared to push themselves to the limit that they once before the injury? And that's a big question mark we have with Sutton.
And here's the thing. This is reality. This is round 7. Granted, after you get past the 5th, 6th round, everybody's kind of like a risk reward in some way. But here's the thing. Realistically, I'm going to pull my strategy right now. Other people can know it's fine. But if I have a successful first 6 rounds, I came away with both starting running backs, both starting receivers, my flex, which is either a running back or receiver, plus whichever one I didn't get already a third of in the 6th round is my third receiver or running back. So I'm set. And in this situation, instead of taking that risk on getting a 4th receiver, or even if he's your 3rd receiver, you can go a safe route and get quarterback 8, Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't really matter if you love Aaron Rodgers or hate Aaron Rodgers. He's always going to produce in that top 5 to 10 quarterback range. And he can just be a guy that you're never going to sit. Does not matter what defense he plays in. It doesn't matter what stadium he plays in. You're going to play him every week. And the fact that you can get that same quarterback upside in the 7th round that other guys were getting in the 2nd through 4th or 5th is a huge thing there. It's just less risky. Aaron Rodgers, outside of an Anthony Barr tackle from behind type thing, is going to play a full season. Now, let's go ahead and close out this segment. 8th round. Who we got here? We got ADP 94.
We got Hurts, which is a huge question mark, in my opinion. Everybody's hyping him up in Philadelphia, thinking that he's the second coming of Randall Cunningham, thinking that, he's going to be a scrambling machine. He's going to be a mobile quarterback that is going to get you 500 yards on the ground, was throwing 3,000 yards for 30 touchdowns. Taper expectations. There's a lot of rumors going around that he may not even be in Philadelphia, pending some legal issues with a certain other quarterback. I don't like Hurts. I don't like him. I didn't like him in college. I thought he's a game manager. I see that in him. I don't see that he has that basically quote unquote it factor, killer instinct that you want in your starting quarterback, because this is where my strategy, this is where I start looking for my QB1 that I'm going to be able to start every week. You mentioned Aaron Rodgers. You're going to be able to get somebody like a Russell Wilson right here as well, who first 8 weeks is going to be spectacular, and then they're going to start hyping him up for the MVP, and then he's going to fall off like he does every year. I love Russell Wilson, but reality. So you can look at a Russell Wilson right here. You can look at, even sliding back, talking about the previous round, you can see a Rodgers slide to right here. You've got to taper expectations. And I don't think that you can hang your hat on Hurts as your QB1 to win you a championship.
Yeah, the reward is real. The Randall Cunningham comp, I'm not a big fan of. Like, I understand they have like similar kind of like builds, and like they're both kind of rushing quarterback. I don't like how like we just like go to that comp, right? I'm not saying you are, but that's what the consensus is.
Yeah.
I don't like how they just do that personally. It's like Andrew Luck's coming out of college and it's like, oh, the second coming of Peyton Manning. Like, slow up, guys.
Yeah.
Just hang on a second. Now let's break down the reward. He's the starter. He plays all season. There's no trading for Watson. There's no trading for whatever. There's no benching. The team loves him. Doesn't matter if they're winning or losing. And he gets 500 plus rushing yards, throws for about 3,000 yards to the air, gets a total combined 20 to 30 touchdowns. Fantastic, great upside. However, the risk part is the fact that we don't know, like, why is Philly not naming him the starting quarterback? And there's no benefit to not doing this. It makes no sense to me. There's nobody else there competing with him. Do they just not believe in him? Does the whole new group that came on, the new regimen that came in, are they just waiting to get their guy next year? Is that the thing? I mean, like, because realistically right now they could have 2 first-round picks if Carson Wentz comes back and plays 75% of snaps. If the team isn't a big fan of him and he's not performing like he's supposed to, then he could be benched early. The biggest problem with him not being able to perform the way he wants to or should, it might not even be his fault. He could be the starter. Remember last year, Carson Wentz was the most sacked quarterback in 2020. He played 12 games. 12 games. And he was sacked more than any other quarterback. Jalen Hurts came in the last 4 games and he was sacked, I don't know, it was like 23 times or something like that, like 20 times. Philly cannot protect anybody right now. So that could prevent him from being a guy that has high upside and could be that high reward for you. And just the fact that you can get other quarterbacks, or you can get these other guys that I feel like are better. Like, I feel like the quarterback position is not a place you want to take a risk. Personally, I want a guy that I can start the whole time, and
right.
I only got to kind of switch him off on bye or whatnot. That's for me personally. And
yeah, and I'm saying I'm the same way. I want that security at my QB1 that I just plug in. The only time I have to sub him out is a bye week or a freak accident.
exactly. And that is going to do it for us here on Second and Short and the Cheap Seats Fantasy Podcast. My name is Tyler Lauder, joined with our fantasy dynasty expert, Jason. Be sure to check us out. You see all below us, right below our videos and everything. We've got our TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter handles down there. Follow us on all formats to stay updated on everything. We post updates of everything on Facebook, daily videos and content on TikTok, including real NFL news plus fantasy dynasty. On Instagram, we got some cool graphics from our guy, Aaron, over in the Middle East, providing some great pictures for us. And then we also got over on Twitter, we got polls going up every other day. We got responses to fans. We're going to help you guys out with your trade questions. If you guys have a question, tag one of us, tag both of us, and we'll spread it out there. We'll answer back to you. Hit us up in the DMs.
Yeah, I mean, you can hit me up at TZLEY822 on my Twitter. Make sure that you also include Tyler, and we will definitely give you the advice. It's non-biased. I mean, you definitely have a non-biased approach here, because we want our listeners, that as long as they're not in leagues with us, we want them to carry this knowledge on and win their leagues. Some big money leagues, some just bragging rights. I know that there's leagues out there that have punishment leagues. And that I love seeing. So we want you to have the insider edge, and that's why we provide this content for you.
Exactly. And that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you all for listening. And you guys have yourselves a great night.